Black progressives need to go to war with black neoliberalism. Because if you look at the history of neoliberalism and the history of capitalism, it hasn't done anything for black families. And I was over in South Carolina helping Bernie Sanders and his campaign out, and I was having a lot of conversation with black families. And I was sharing with the black families our platform and what it would mean for their lives and the lives of black Americans. And we was having a lot of great success because I said it before. I made a video a few weeks ago where I was talking about how Bernie Sanders had the most pro black platform in American history, or he had the most pro black platform. Because I'm a big believer in intersectionality. I believe that Medicare for all is the most pro black policy there is, because if you look at black families are the ones that are most likely going into medical debt. We are most likely to be uninsured or underinsured as well, right? And we die two, three times more likely due to diabetes as well, and a lot of preventive health that could be avoided if we wasn't afraid to go to the doctor. I don't go to the doctor. My grandpa didn't go to the doctor. Maybe they would have found his lung cancer a little bit earlier if they did, right? So the whole point is, if you look at Bernie's campaign, if you look at his platform and what he pushed for, he obviously was the most pro-black candidate that I ever seen running, because Medicare for All just won. Black people are more likely to take out student loan debt because we have less wealth. Which, going to the point of this video, is I don't understand why black Americans, especially older black Americans, rejected their revolutionary roots. And they also continue to prop up neoliberal capitalism, which has done nothing for our communities. Because I know what people might say in this video. Who are you to tell black boomers what they can do? Who are you to say what the black community should invest in, right? Well, my response is as simple as that. Neoliberal capitalism had destroyed the black communities, and there were studies before that was done that even if you look at the time since 1960, right? Um, During the time we had a big civil rights movement, and the civil rights law passed. The gap in wealth between white wealth and black wealth only decreased about 7% since then. So since the time that a lot of liberals will admit that was extremely racist, our wealth have not caught up at all. In fact, of that, we have 1/10 of the wealth of the average white family. If you look at the wage growth from white families and Hispanic families, they have grown four times faster than the wage growth of black families. Now, don't get me wrong. The study even says that that wage increase is not because, or that wage difference is not because white workers and Hispanic workers are getting a lot of wage increase. No, no, it's just because black workers don't have received no increases. That pretty much shows exactly what that is, right? And if you look at home ownership, another sign of wealth, only 41% of black occupants live in a home that is owned by the owner, whether that be your dad own the home or you own the home. Only 41%. That number with white family is 71%. And that directly ties to the concept of capitalism, where renters and people that rent, they are unable to build their wealth, and black people are more susceptible to that. They're more susceptible to this predatory housing community that we have. So 1/6 of the black renters, they spending over half their income on housing. So if you spend over half your income on housing, you're not able to build your growth, right? I'm sorry, your wealth, and that ties directly to the fact that there is no black wealth. And another pro-black policy that Bernie had, he believed in a housing bill of rights. He wanted to do universal rent control to prevent the fact that we spending half our income in gentrified communities, right? Once again, Joe Biden and none of the other Democrats talking about housing reform. Bernie Sanders is. So Bernie Sanders is the most pro-black candidate that ran, um, and so I decided to rail against anyone taking this loss pretty badly. Well, anyone trying to figure out what they're gonna do. A lot of people have lashed out against Bernie. I'm not gonna take that direction. I've been criticized Bernie Sanders. Well, I think he needs to be criticized that, but I don't want to knock the man down when he's down. Um, I think the best thing that I can do as a black progressive, and I think a lot of things, what a lot of black progressives should consider. A lot of white progressives, they aren't able to levy the criticism on neoliberal capitalism on black Americans, and they're not able to challenge black power the way we are able to. They're not able to talk about the fact that um, black boomers are delusional. They're not able to bring up that black people that prop capitalism are delusional. 1 in 4 black families live in poverty. 1 in 4. Comparison, it's only 1 in 10 in whites, 1 in 10 in Asians. I can keep going about. I can keep going on these stats all day, man. I can go on these stats on all day. So, for example, to show the disparity of white wealth and the black income inequality, for every $1 that a white family owns, black wealth gets 8 cents for that $1. So you have black leaders that continue to prop up black neoliberalism. You have Jim Clyburn, John Lewis. You got a lot of black media propagandists, Bakari Sellout, just one example, who jump behind Biden. And one thing, I remember some guy left me a comment on Twitter that I thought was kind of funny. He was he was implying that I was the Uncle Tom because I didn't fall in line for a Democratic establishment. Like, how? Can someone explain to me how that makes sense? It doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense to me. So you have John Lewis, Jim Clyburn, the entirety of the Black Progressive Caucus fell in line with Joe Biden. What does that say? What did I tell you? Now, I will ask you, what is Joe Biden's pitch towards the African American community? Because I see a lot of the same people that was demanding Bernie Sanders support reparations, even though their candidate never supported it. No, never mind that. That's completely gone with Joe Biden. Joe Biden not talking about the housing reform that needed to happen. He's not talking about the black income wealth inequality gap, which liberals always get really quiet when you bring that up. But they're not talking about these issues. They're not making concessions towards um, the progressive policies that will help out black families. Um, the way I put it earlier, and the way I continue to put it, is I think Medicare for All is the most pro-black platform you can possibly run. Just because, as I mentioned, black people are more likely to own medical debt, will most likely be underinsured or non-insured. Joe Biden said he would veto Medicare for all. So Joe Biden is an anti-black candidate, and you have the leaders falling in line for him, not asking for any concessions or anything that will help out the black community and help out black wealth. This is why I've been inspired by Dr. Cornel West. I knew who Dr. Cornel West was before the Bernie Sanders campaign. I admired his work when he was criticizing Obama, because I remember during the early days where I still had cognitive dissonance regarding Obama. I heard Cornel West. I heard what he was saying. It hit me hard. I was like, "Oh fuck, man, he has made some great points." And I looked into him. I looked into his background and the amount of black excellence that Dr. Cornel West was able to achieve, and he's someone that I kind of base my ideology on and who I strive to be. He's an amazing soul and amazing gentleman. Um, And he challenged Black Power. He consistently called out the Black Congressional Caucus. He consistently called out Barack Obama when it was unpopular. I would never understand how Cornel West kept being invited on those shows. Like they let him be on CNN and MSNBC. I don't know how he slipped through the cracks. It just shows how much of an incredible guy he is, because his accomplishment in academia is incredible as well. I don't know everything about Harvard. I think he was the first Black Harvard law professor, I believe. That's why I believe. I don't know all his academia credentials, but his progressive credentials is amazing. Um, and not even that, it's just wealth of knowledge. He can talk about pretty much everything. Like not even just politics. He can talk about pop culture, history, music, and all that. Um, and another black intellectual I take a lot of inspiration from is W.B. Du Bois, another black socialist. And a reading that I recommend to all black progressives and all black socialists themselves is to read W.B.'s Socialism and the American Negro that he wrote in the 20s. And it still applies today. It's still incredible literature that applies today. And one passage that I post a lot on Twitter and that I want to share with you guys now is the one with Dr. Cornel West. He talked about how once the American Negro started to find success, he started to team up with the corporate power and the power structures to suppress the Negro and to continue to suppress black wealth, because they think by doing that, they validate their wealth and they're able to establish himself among power. So he wrote about the Black Congressional Caucus. He wrote about black leadership and why they advanced the need of the imperialism um, and the establishment. It's a great book. It's a great read. And you had W.B. Du Bois calling out black capitalists in his day. Dr. Cornel West, he's a legend, someone I tried to be like who did it before. Um, he's endorsing Joe Biden now. I don't agree with that, but I think our generation of black progressives, or our time is now. It's now. So that's why I would love to have a leadership position one day in the progressive movement. Um, But for now, I'm gonna continue to do my part calling out black neoliberalism, because I think that's how we do our part.